Okay, we're live. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us again this evening. I'm so sorry for all the technical difficulties we've had over the past couple of days. Thank you for bearing with us. Really appreciate it. And Serena, thank you so much for joining us again today.
That's fine. I'm happy to be here.
So for those of you that didn't watch yesterday, the minute and a half we were live yesterday, this is 1854 Presents. I'm Zoe Harrison. I'm a creative producer at 1854 Media. And today I'm not in the office. We're back safe, where technical difficulties hopefully are no longer here. And I'm joined, as I said earlier, with the fabulous Serena Brown. So thank you for joining us. For those of you that don't know Serena's work, I'm just going to give a really brief introduction because we're going to go into it in just a minute. Serena's work teeters on the lines of documentary and fashion photography with a particular focus on working class youth culture in the UK. Since graduating, she's worked with the likes of Nike, Converse and Foot Locker. So thank you so much for joining us. It's great to have you.
Thank you. Honestly, it's such a pleasure to be here.
As always, there'll be a Q&A at the end. So if you have any questions, you've had 24 hours now to think of them. So send them in either on the 1854 Presents website or on Facebook, and we'll get through as many as we can at the end. And if you can't think of any questions, just let us know where you're watching from. We love to hear where you're all watching from and just have a chat. So this week, Serena has requested that donations for this talk could go to BLAM UK. So BLAM stands for Black Learning Achievement and Mental Health, and they aim to promote positive dialogue of social identity and culture through history. So it's a fantastic cause, and if you're in a position to do so, do donate in the link below if you're watching on the Presents website, and I'll be posting a link to the donation page on Facebook as soon as we come off this, and it'll be the pinned comment, so it'll be easy to find. So you can also sign up to our newsletter below if you're watching on the Presents website, and if you want to share this live stream with someone that can't watch it right now, I'll be posting this onto our archive shortly after this talk finishes. So hello Serena, we made it further than lovely to have you here. How are you?
I'm good, I'm very good. How are you?
I'm better than I was yesterday, so that's good. So how have the past few months been for you?
They've been interesting. Obviously, like everyone else, it's been a bit of a shock to the system being at home and not having normal life. I actually went full-time freelance at the end of February, and everything stopped. So it was a bit of like a shock to the system, but I think it's given me some time to actually do some personal projects which I hadn't focused on since I graduated. So yeah, it's been nice to slow down a little bit, but also shoot some stuff that I really care about.
Great. And so for those of you who don't know your work, I've described it really briefly in the introduction. So how would you describe it in your own words?
I think you were kind of bang on. I guess I like to shoot sort of documentary style through a fashion lens, but I think my work's very sort of community based, and I like to sort of make sure there's a story behind the images I'm telling, and there's a narrative, and I'm kind of spotlighting someone in particular. But yeah, it's usually a fashion style, but I like to platform people whilst I'm doing it, basically.
Nice. So should we talk about your project Class of COVID-19? I'll get some pictures up while we're talking about it. Hang on. Serena, would you mind sharing your screen?
Yeah, give me a minute. I don't know how to do it properly.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it won't let me share my screen, I think.
Okay, well, while we're getting pictures up, do you want to describe a little bit about how this project started, Class of COVID-19?
So basically, at the start of lockdown, it was announced that exams were all cancelled, and my younger sister Chloe, she's just turned 18, so she was part of that group who had their final A-levels cancelled, So I've kind of been able to have like a first-hand view of like everything unfolding. And it kind of took me back to when I was in year 13, and I struggled with my mental health so much, so I could only sort of relate to them going through this such a confusing time. And obviously so much happened this year that was like devastating for so many people, but I feel like it was like brushed over a little bit how crazy it is that these young people weren't able to take their exams, and obviously how damaging that could be for their future and their mental health. So I kind of took it as an opportunity to chat to some of the girls, because I feel like at that age you don't really have, like, people don't really care to listen to you that much, or like think that your opinions holds anything. So I basically went around and shot some girls and chatted to them about how they were feeling about the situation, and what they thought about how the government was dealing with it as well.
So fantastic. And how many girls did you end up photographing in the end? I
think it was close to 15.
Wow.
Obviously it was a bit tricky because we were in the middle of a pandemic, so starting a personal project during that time wasn't the easiest. But I managed to sort of reach out to people through Facebook pages and like local community pages, and also like through my sister and her friends. So I managed to find people who were nearby that I could like reach during our 1 hour's freedom that we had in March, and go and shoot them and chat to them as well.
Okay, so we have the pictures up now. Sorry about that slight delay. So how did you meet all the people that you managed to photograph? And even actually that'll be a follow-up question. How did you are these just people from your community?
Yeah, pretty much. Like I said, I didn't really have many options when it came to it. Not that these girls weren't amazing, of course, but no, I had to just sort of make sure that there were people that I could reach in a short amount of time. So I live in West London, so I kind of spoke to a few girls that lived locally to me about how they were feeling, and everyone was so willing to do it, which was nice as well, because it did feel like what I was doing was, you know, important to that age group, and I was able to sort of like represent them in a way that I don't think anyone else was really doing.
So how did you find shooting during lockdown? How did you approach that?
Well, I guess I stripped it way back. Like my only option, I didn't really want anyone to feel uncomfortable with the fact I was coming to shoot them as well, so I went to all of their homes and just shot them on their doorsteps initially, which was nice because it just felt a bit more personal, and it wasn't, obviously they're not like professional models or anything, so it just felt a bit more normal. It was good. I kind of enjoyed doing that. I have continued my project now post results day as well, so the shots I've done from that are a bit more, I think I've got 2 of them in here. Yeah, this one I did last week. These are a bit more like on location, which was kind of nice to do as well, because although they still feel like super personal and like just on the street, I could be a bit more creative with it basically, because, you know, it was just before I just had doorsteps.
And have you heard back from any of them since this happened?
I've been chatting to them since I saw, because some of them went to my sister's school, so on results day I actually saw a few of them on the day, and that was quite crazy to see unfold really, because I think going to the school, it was like such a mix of like people bawling their eyes out and like teachers frantically like trying to sort stuff out for students who hadn't got what they wanted or what they needed to go to higher education. So yeah, it's a bit of a struggle, but I've spoken to them again. So I think most of them, if not all of them, ended up eventually getting what they needed to get in.
Fantastic.
I was happy for them.
Yeah, I think certainly everyone that I know knows at least one person that has been really negatively impacted by this whatever shambles, if that's the right way. I don't know any other way to explain it.
I think that's the right word, yeah.
And I think I said this to you. I think I recognized this girl when I was walking past the other day. So if she's watching, I think I saw you. That's probably really, I apologize, that's very strange, but you're famous now, apparently. So in the project we're going to move on to talk about just in a minute, it's clear that London is really at the heart of your work. And I think I read something that, because you went to Falmouth University, and you travelled up a lot to work, which is a long time to travel.
Especially on the coach, yeah.
What is it that kept you coming back up to London to shoot, rather than, even despite the fact that it was, so Cornwall is known as being a very beautiful part of the world. What is it kept bringing you back to London?
Of course, like Cornwall's stunning, but I think going to university there sort of made me appreciate London a lot more, especially like the community and the culture that I've grown up with, and the diversity of London was definitely something that I missed as soon as I hit Cornwall. So I think when I started to do my work, I felt like it was lacking like a part of my identity. And obviously knowing I was going to be moving back home to London afterwards, it was quite important for me to kind of capture me. I didn't really like resonate with Cornwall as much as I had in London, but still love Cornwall, but
they love Cornwall.
London's for me. But it made me like understand and appreciate London a lot more, and the people here, and the way people are here.
So should we talk a little bit about Backyard, which I think is probably where you probably first started getting your recognition from, and I think this was on Huffington. I think I saw it on Huffington Post, and it was shared quite widely. So what inspired this project?
So I guess the main inspiration for this project was a guy called Dapper Dan, who is a tailor in Harlem in the 90s, who basically used to get like bootleg and like cuts of designer clothes and rework them to fit sort of 90s hip hop fashion trends, because he kind of felt like these brands weren't really catering to his community. And so that was like the initial inspiration. I think the time I started working on this project, basically there was like a weird time where tracksuits suddenly like became this amazing thing that everyone wanted to wear, and I found it a bit ironic that for so long the working class people in tracksuits within the media had kind of pushed this narrative that someone in a tracksuit is threatening or a criminal or a thug, and like Trayvon Martin, for example, he was shot whilst wearing a hoodie, and that was really, he was penalized for that in the media after he was killed. So yeah, I wanted to make a project that kind of showed that these trends do start from working class people, and they come from the street basically. So I kind of went around and shot my friends, and like my sister as well. I shot my friends in their areas, and just basically we made these tracksuits, I put them on them, and I was just like, look good. And they just did it, and it was effortless. And that's kind of the authenticity that I was trying to get from this project, and I'm glad that it was able to sort of translate as well.
Someone has just commented on Facebook saying someone in a tracksuit is just trying to be ready for exercise at all times.
Definitely, that as well.
But I remember you said to me that whenever you were exhibiting this work, you had the tracksuits on a hanger kind of next to the work, and a few people came up to you asking to buy them. Yeah,
I mean, I had people asking to buy them, and also just like influencers like, let me wear your clothes and I'll get you coverage. But they meant a bit more to me than that. Like, I still have them in my wardrobe. I wear them sometimes because I love them, like, and they were just sort of made from scratch, made my project, and it was really important for me to exhibit them alongside my project as well, because I feel like they were just as much part of the art as the photos as well.
Yeah, and I think that, the fact that influencers were coming up to you and asking to wear them really kind of speaks truth to exactly what you're
the people who approached me were not the people that I wanted to be wearing clothes I made, basically.
So did you make the tracksuits?
So I didn't. The person who made the tracksuits was my friend Georgia Brenius. She does textiles. So we kind of sat down together, and I explained to her what I would like to happen, and we sort of designed it and came up with ideas, and then she put it all together. So I was so grateful for her because I'm not talented when it comes to making clothes as much as I would love to be, but she definitely helped me out with that so much. Like,
And yeah, so as we were saying, this project started as a criticism of the fashion industry and kind of how it is at the moment. What's the word? Completely forgotten what I'm trying to say. Not what I'm trying. It's kind of appropriating working class culture and you know, all this from stemming from that. And now you've gone on to work with clients like Nike and Converse. So how do you create work for them that kind of combats this narrative that you were criticizing?
I think I've been really fortunate with the briefs and the projects that I've worked on since graduating, to be honest. Like everything's been very community focused and mission driven, and particularly the project that I did with Converse whilst I was at Refinery, they basically platformed young creatives in London and sort of gave people who wouldn't have a foot in the industry a chance to sort of platform their talent. And it was really nice for me to go out and meet like women who were so passionate at what they did, and I was like, I could not do what you're doing, sort of thing. So it was really, really nice. And I think by making fashion work that's meaningful and impactful and that helps people, that's kind of how we can, you know, go against the grain here. Especially even the stuff I did with Nike. I worked with the England netball team and the women's England football team as well. So it was nice to sort of give a voice and a platform to like really, really inspiring people as well as people just coming up.
Great. And, you know, kind of leading on from that, you know, you've spoken a lot about the lack of representation in the art world, but in the creative industries in general. And, you know, the lack of representation of people from working class backgrounds. So how do you think that, you know, the photography world or the fashion photography world, for being more specific about it, is changing, and or if it's not changing, how it needs to change?
I think it's changing slowly. I think there's still so much work to be done. Like I saw a statistic the other day that was like only 16% of people in the creative industry are from working class backgrounds, which is just a ridiculously low number. I think we need to level the playing fields, basically. I wouldn't, when I graduated, I got an internship that was paid at Refinery 29, and I think unpaid internships are really, really unfair for working class people that can't afford to do that, because I guess the industry is so much about who you know and how you can make networking connections and stuff. So if I hadn't have had that opportunity, I definitely wouldn't have been able to afford to do an unpaid internship, particularly living in London. It's so unachievable for a lot of people. So I think, I think we need to level the playing field, and it's really important for working class people to have a voice in the creative industry and in the media as a whole. So I think that's what needs to happen, really, because
I mean, you know, if the media is controlled by people that from one particular sector of society, it's not giving a representation of society.
Yeah, exactly. And that's so important for everyone to be visible in the media that we consume.
Yeah, 100%. And this just as like a side note, I saw your work for the Face magazine that you shot at the BLM protests.
Yeah.
How was that for you?
It was amazing, to be honest. I mean, I'm a big fan of the Face magazine anyway, but that time in history and the movement that's happened during the last few months, I think is really, really important to document. So I'm glad that I had the opportunity to do that. Going to the protests, I was a bit like wary and unsure because obviously it was in the middle of a pandemic, but I definitely got the feeling that I needed to do it. And when I got there, it was amazing to see just how many people felt as passionate as I did about what was happening. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that it's not a moment, it is a movement, and like still so much work needs to be done, but I'm glad that a conversation is starting to happen. And I just hope that the promises that people have put forward, particularly brands in the creative industry, like I hope that actually has an impact, because otherwise, you know, posting a blank square doesn't do anything. It's about action. So yeah, I'm hoping that it brings forward a change.
Yeah, fantastic. Would you be happy to move on to some questions?
Yeah, we can go for it.
Cool. Okay, so anyone you're watching, send in your questions. We've had a few coming in now, so whilst we're having a chat, I'm gonna, oh, let's not do that. Let's stop sharing my screen first. There we go. So whilst we're starting to have a chat, do send in your questions, and we'll get through as many as we can. So how do your subjects receive your work?
I I think it's a bit different, because I think because I shoot a lot of people I know, a lot of people who don't, aren't in front of the camera much.
Yeah.
It can be a bit of like a shock to the system to kind of see yourself portrayed in like someone else's vision, basically. But I think the vast majority of the time it's received well, I hope. I always try to make everyone as comfortable as possible. I'm like super chill whenever I'm with anyone, because I'm not an intense person anyway. So I think my work kind of, you can tell from the body language of my subjects that they're very relaxed in everything that I shoot, basically. I hope so.
Actually, this is a question for me. What's your favorite commission that you've shot? Because you've shot you were in Paris a while ago, which was great.
I think it's gonna have to be the shoot that I did with Foot Locker last year, because they commissioned me to basically just shoot something for International Women's Day. It was a super open brief, and it was just something that meant something to me. What was International Women's Day for me, basically. So it was like a super fun opportunity for me to shoot my friends, who I was so, they inspire me on a daily basis just for like existing and being amazing women. So I went out with my friends, geared them up in like tracksuits and whatnot from Foot Locker, and we just had like a really, really fun day out, and I just shot them, and it was just like very natural. And I think that's probably the most authentic thing I've shot. Probably.
Yeah. So a question from Stephen. Hello, Stephen. Thank you for joining us. So do you work with stylists in your shoots?
Sometimes. It depends. Like if I'm on a branded shoot, most of the time. But to be honest, I think probably like 60-70% of the stuff I've done, I've not worked with stylists. Especially when it's just my own work. I've just kind of got on with it. Not to say that I wouldn't work with a stylist, or I have a problem with stylists. But no, I think stylists are incredible, and like they bring so much. But I think for a lot of the work I'm doing, it's past surface level, and I don't want to focus too much on the clothes at all times, unless it is a fashion editorial or piece or something I'm working on. But yeah, I think I style sometimes as well. Like I just kind of get on with it. So yeah.
Nice. And again from Stephen. So thanks Stephen for the double questions. So do you shoot digital or analog?
I mainly shoot analog at the moment. I used to shoot digital all the time, but now the last sort of 2 years has like only analog. But I do flip between the two. It just really depends on the project. I love shooting on film. Definitely love shooting on film, but I think some situations warrant shooting on digital. Like the shoot concept would fit better with digital, so I do that. I try to like balance it a bit, but I think it's a little bit unbalanced at the moment.
What draws you to film other than over digital?
I think it's a completely different way of shooting for me. I slow right down. It feels a bit more intimate, because the camera that I shoot with is not in my face, it's down here. So I'm able to sort of like engage and chat with my subject. But yeah, so I think that's probably why I prefer it, because it just feels a bit more intimate. It's a bit slower. Film is like visually amazing as well. But yeah, sometimes digital is important as well.
Yeah, nice. And Stella, hello Stella.
Hi, Stella.
How does one take the photography business forward during the pandemic times? That's quite a tough question, and we've had it quite a lot to a lot of our, not to Stella, not to it's a great question, and it's really interesting asking loads of different photographers this question. Is how do you think, throughout a pandemic, how do we take the photography business?
like as a photographer, how do we move forward with it?
Yeah.
The situation and like what social distancing and stuff, or
I think so, and I think it's just kind of how do you, yeah, I think it's kind of how are you kind of adapting your practice.
yeah. It's been hard. It was definitely like a shock to the system when I got to my first shoot and I had to shoot like 5 people that had to be 2 meters apart from one another. So I was
Yeah.
like, running really far away to get everyone in shot.
Yeah.
But I think you just adapt. You get, you know, I feel like what I do is about being creative, and you kind of just have to make it look like everyone loves each other when they're so far away from each other.
Yeah.
I do love like close portraits as well, so it was a bit of like I had to adapt. But I don't think it's that much of a shock to the system. I think people are kind of getting back to normal in a sense, or feeling more comfortable with being at a 2 meter distance at least. So I think that's helping. But from the shoots that I've done since lockdowns ended, I think productions and stuff are adapting super fast. Everything is so safe and everything is so sanitary. And yeah, I don't feel worried being on set, which I thought I might be, because, you know, obviously sometimes you just sort of let things go and everyone takes their masks off and no one cares anymore. And I didn't really want that to be the case when I was shooting.
Yeah.
But I think I'm still able to like communicate with my subjects and stuff, even if it is a little bit further away from them than I usually would be.
Yeah, just a megaphone.
Yeah.
Let me just see. I'm just reading this question from Daniel. Let's have a look. Also, I'm just going to quickly, while we're having a chat, read some of the places that people are watching from. So Stella's from Bangalore in India. So hello India. From Doha, Japan, Mauritius, Abergavenny.
Wow.
Afghanistan, Pakistan, Sudan, France, Dubai, Blackburn, Lancashire. Hello, from Blackburn. California, Turkey, Indonesia. One thing, hello. Stella says impressive.
Thank you.
So,
thank you everyone for tuning in.
Ben would like to know, when is your favorite time of day to shoot?
Probably like cliche golden hour times, whenever that is during the day. But to be honest, I don't get too hung up on sunny weather, because obviously I live in London and that doesn't happen. So I'd probably say in the afternoon, the early morning. I get stressed out at midday, so if I can start either of those times, I'm happy. But yeah.
Cool. So what advice do you have do you have any advice for people who are from working class backgrounds who are hoping to break into the art scene or into the photography industry?
Yeah, I actually do get like messaged quite a lot from people, just like, how do you do it, sort of thing. And it's kind of a bit of an impossible question, but I do think there are some like startup things that are there to mentor and help young people from working class backgrounds. One in particular called The Colour Balance, which has just started up and is sort of putting together a database of really young aspiring photographers who are put on an assistant database. And I think assisting is such an important way of like learning and building your craft and learning from other people. Every time I've assisted, like I've learned so much. So I think just reach out to people, in all honesty. Like just ask if you can come along to a shoot, ask people for advice, like people you admire as well in the photography industry. Like it doesn't hurt to just drop someone a message or an email and just ask a question. Like I will always answer. I hope other people will always answer, because I just think, you know, advice is free, and like anything I can do to really help other people enter the industry and kind of be as fortunate as I have with the way I've started my career 2 years ago, I will do, because yeah, it's really hard. It is difficult, but it is possible. And I think that's what needs to be drilled into people's heads when they're at school. Like my school was so academic, and it was like the only way you can achieve success is through the academic route. I felt like I was taking a massive risk by trying to become a photographer, and I was always just kind of like, I don't really know if this is going to happen, like, am I going to make any money from it? But like, you can do it, but I think it needs to be seen less as a risk, and that happens by the industry becoming more accessible to everyone.
So another question is kind of leading on from that statement about kind of feeling that you really felt very strongly about taking on photography as a career. How did you initially get into photography?
So like initially, or like when I graduated?
No, I would say like initially, like pre-graduation
to
uni.
Okay. I guess I always used to take photos, like just of my family, like just I've taken so many random photos of my sister that now I look back at and I'm like, why was I doing that? So I think I kind of had a passion for it before I really knew that I did. I took it as a subject at A-level, and that was kind of the first time I experimented with photography and like set up shoots and like came up with concepts and stuff, and that was when I was like, yeah, I think this is definitely the only thing I enjoy in life. That's kind of why I took it at university, but it did feel like a risk, like I was kind of shooting in the dark, because I didn't really know what kind of photographer I wanted to be at that point. I mean, you wouldn't, like, I was like 17. So, yeah, I think it kind of just sprung from always liking shooting, and then guess but having a chance to actually experiment with being a photographer whilst I was in A-levels.
Okay, I'm just having a look at the questions here. We might move on to, unless anyone else has any final burning questions, we might move on to our last couple of questions here. So if you've got any more burning questions, send them in and we'll go through as many as we can. So what kind of is the best piece of advice that you've received kind of throughout your career?
It's so simple, but it's just like, keep shooting. Like, I don't think I ever really stopped shooting, and I probably hated like loads of the stuff that I shot when I first started. Like, some of it was really, really crazy for some reason. I used to do really dark photography when I was at A-levels. Like, everything was like horror themed. But at that time, I was like, this is amazing. Like, after graduating, like, I would just go to my friends' music shows and I'd take photos of them. I'd like drag my sister out all the time to like model for me and take photos. Like, she absolutely hates it now. I never ask her anymore because she hates it. But I just constantly shoot, constantly put it out into the world, and I think people started to like it, which is great. And like, the most random people will see it and you won't expect it. So I honestly think, just if you keep putting in work and keep working really hard and don't give up. So generic, but like, honestly, it's the truth, because I think that's really the basis for where I am now, is just being really determined and, you know, wanting to reach where I need to go, basically.
Yeah. Okay, I think we're kind of, let me just check this. I think we might move on to our final question, which is, you know, obviously you've had, your career hasn't, you know, you're still very much in the early stages of your career, which people mightn't believe based on what you've achieved so far. But what would you say your career highlight has been?
I don't know if it could be one thing, but I'm very proud of the fact I've been able to sort of work so closely with people who I don't think otherwise would have had like opportunities to be platformed, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's nice to like give back and give other people opportunities and stuff. So that's kind of my favorite thing to do, if I can do, when I'm like even casting someone to shoot. I'll like pick someone who maybe hasn't shot before, but I take a risk and like they have a great day, and like that's really nice. There was a project I did at Refinery 29, which was for International Women's Day, where I went and shot 29 under 18s around London,
Oh yes, I've
And
seen
so
them.
like,
They're
yeah, it's
great.
not like they were from like 5 to like 18. So I got to kind of like meet up with like these little girls who were so excited to have a day out and like be shot, and they were going to be on a website, and it was super exciting. So like, yeah, I love stuff like that. That's kind of my overall highlight of what I do.
That's a nice, a nice fuzzy way.
I know.
And just actually really quickly, Matilda just would like to know, you mentioned color balance, the color. So how would you, is there a website? How do they go about finding them?
There's an Instagram page called the
Okay.
color balance. Yeah.
Okay.
You can share it afterwards, or I can share it.
I can share it. I can share it. Let me write a note of it. I've actually already written a note.
Yeah, it's the color balance.
Cool. I'll share that once we go off the air. And but yeah, that's great. I'm just going to quickly list off a few more people that have been watching, because we've had so many people from all over the world watching, which has been so nice. So Ireland, big up Ireland. London, Egypt. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining us again on Friday. Lasted a little bit longer than it did yesterday, but thankfully the technology hasn't failed us today. And Serena, thank you again for joining us today as well as yesterday. Sorry again for the technical difficulty we've had, and thank you so much for talking to us about.
No, thank you. Honestly, it's been really great to have a little chat.
Yeah, great. Well, listen, everyone, have a fabulous weekend. As I said, I'll be publishing this on our archive. So if you're just joining now, you can pop on there in maybe an hour or so, and I'll have that up for you to watch again and share it with as many people as you like. And if you're in a position to do so, do have a look at the donation link. It's a great charity, and I'm sure all funds there will be really greatly appreciated. But besides that, have a lovely weekend, everyone, and I'll see you hopefully on Thursday next week rather than Friday.